I'm speaking with Ed Ketchum. He's the new tribal chairman for the Amah Mutsun tribal band. Ed Ketchum, so congratulations about the new chairmanship. This is a recent appointment for you, right?
Very recent, about a couple months ago. I was not expecting it, but life takes you where it takes you. So I'm glad to face this challenge here.
Well, there's some really good news. So, not all of our listeners have been following this, but for several years, there have been the threat of a giant gravel pit mine on some property on the north coast, known as Juristac by the Amah Mutsun tribal band, but as known as Sargeant Ranch by other people. So, tell us the story of how this land was saved.
Juristac means big head, and this was the big head place. And if your listeners don't know, the dancers at California Indian ceremonies were large apparatus on top of their heads, and they call those big heads. So this was the big head place, and it was known as the big head place before the Spanish came to California. It's on the mission records. People are recorded as coming from Juristac. In the 1850s through 70s, it was taken away from the Herman family and taken up by the Sargent family. And the Sargent family controlled that land for over 100 years. And then some developers purchased it and tried various schemes to make money. And the last scheme was to build a huge gravel operation. And we opposed that with all of our hearts, minds, and souls. And so we got help from many, many different organizations. And we started the protest program. And we received, we had marches. We met in front of the Santa Clara County office buildings to protest this, with hundreds of people in attendance protesting this potential mine, which would have destroyed this healing place, this sacred place. And the owner, after many years, made a financial decision that he would sell the land to Post, Peninsula Open Space Trust, instead of continuing the process of receiving a mining permit. And that our partnership with Post has resulted in this land being protected in perpetuity.
Tell us a little bit about where it is and how big it is.
It's the southwest corner of Santa Clara County. It's where it's north and west of the Pajaro River, where it meets the San Benito River and makes its way through the Chittenden Pass to the Monterey Bay. The land is over 6,000 acres, but it's part of a greater Juristac landscape. This landscape included many important areas, including oil pits, spring water, hot springs, enormous healing trees, and various other tribally sensitive areas. This is the area where shamans lived, and this is where medicines are collected for healing.
When you say healing tree, can you elaborate a little bit more about what you mean?
Oh, the tribal people had a ceremony where if somebody became ill, they would perform a ceremony where the poison was removed from the person, and that poison would be placed inside a basket along with other items, and it'd be placed underneath these trees, and the basket would explode, releasing the poison to the tree, which then would absorb the poison and heal the person. My grandmother's mother went through one of these ceremonies, and the poison was placed under a tree and healed.
Did she, were you told this as a story that got handed down to generations from your great grandma?
My grandmother's name was Antonia Corona, and she was raised by her grandmother, Ascension Solorzano. Ascension Solorzano was a doctora. She had had a near-death experience, and that led her to this occupation. And her mother was the one that was healed. Now, people have seen her, maybe her picture. Her name was Barbara Sierra. If you go in Berkeley, they have a mural with Ohlone Kosanon people, and Barbara is one of the people featured on that picture. And in the picture, you'll see a scar on her forehead where the medicine man removed the poison from her forehead. This occurred at the medicine man's compound near this Juristac property. It was on the southeast side of the Pahar River rather than the northwest side where Juristac is. But this was within the Juristac landscape. And there were many other shamans that lived in the hills there.
This is a history that is not written down too much, is it? Is it orally passed on, or are there writings that you draw upon for some of your knowledge of the past?
There's two main references for this information. A ethnologist named J.P. Harrington came to the Gilroy area in the 1920s, and he interviewed Ascension Solorzano. That's one source. And the other source was a PhD student at Santa Clara University, wrote a dissertation called The Rise and Decline of Mission San Bautista. And in there, he also describes the Juristac landscape. So those are the two main sources. Plus, there was oral history that was passed down in the family that included information about this site. In addition, my grandmother told us about the fact that that's where she accompanied Ascension when she would collect medicines in the area.
How did it feel when you walked on that same site that your relatives had healed people on? What was that like for you?
Well, it was moving, and this is a long time effort to try to protect this land. Even in the 1800s, our people wanted to protect this land, but the forces were not in line that we could have any change. It was only in the last 20 years that we've had a real voice when the state of California passed Senate Bill 18 and Assembly Bill 52. It allowed those tribal communities that were listed by the Native American Heritage Commission, gave them a voice that could not be silenced because the state law protected our voice and required developers to consult with us in a way that we had not had a voice previously.
So if you don't mind me asking, what is the future going to be like for this land and the people who will be stewarding it?
Well, our future is good. First of all, we'd like to return fire to the landscape, which will encourage traditional plants to grow there once again. And then it's our long-term goal to have elk return antelope return and to see condors and other birds return to this area as well. Over a month ago, we had the first showing of this property to reporters, and we drove through the front gate of the Juristac property. In a tree next to us, there was a bald eagle, and the bald eagle watched us as we drove through the gate to where we parked. And then we went up onto the hill where there are pools of tar. They called it La Brea. And while we were up on the hillside, 2 golden eagles flew over the top of us. And a herd of deer came down from the hillside to the northwest. So this is a very important wildlife area. And we're blessed that we'll be able to protect those wildlife in the future, as this will not be able to be developed in the future. It will have claims on it that will allow it to be developed.
Do you have plans for regular visits by tribal members? How is that going to be facilitated? Will people be living there again after all this time?
No, we don't expect any housing. There may be some people who live there who help with managing and stewarding the land, but the land is going to be used for its environmental and cultural resources. There may be a visitor center there and an information center that allow people to know more about the land and its past uses. But we'd like to tie this to the land to the east, where there once was a lake called Poitiqui and a village of Poitiqui in the plains to the east. And it's our hope that we can help the Pacific Flyway to again have large groups of geese migrate through this area. It's reported that in the pre-contact time that the sky would be so filled with the geese it blocked the sun. I don't know if we'd ever get that again, but we want to return the geese to that and the Pacific Flyway.
It's a beautiful vision that you put forth, and it reminds me of the book that Malcolm Margolin wrote called The Ohlone Way, where he describes what the Bay Area used to look like, what he imagined it used to look like, with really the sky blackened by birds, which is what you just described.
And in Soap Lake, they call it Soap Lake or San Felipe Lake, and we call it Poitiqui. The salmon and steelhead would be waterlogged into this lake, and the people would fish what they called Soap Lake trout, which is really salmon and steelhead who could not make their way into the ocean and instead would live inside this lake that was not tied to the Pajaro River continuously because it was intermittent out of the lake, and it's well documented. The Spanish first explorers saw tribal people fishing off of rafts or boats in the lake. Right now, there's actually a fishery there. At the foot of the lake on the west side, there was a hen salmon that had been hatched from a what do they call nursery. It wasn't and it was 42 inches long. But other salmon get up inside this lake, and there's a colony of pelicans that live on the lake right now. And that lake, when I was there earlier this spring, there was it was a bald eagle on the northwest shore of the lake.
That explains why you saw them when you first came onto the property. I wanted to spend a little bit of time asking you about the bigger landback movement, which seems to be really picking up momentum, where Native peoples are getting large tracts of land. There's one in Big Sur that you probably are aware of. Tell me about why you think the law has something to do with that in California, but it seems to be happening in other places as well. Like we saw the Klamath River Dam coming down as part of a very long fight that the tribes up there had. Tell me more about how this is connected to other stories of other tribes that you're aware of.
All of the tribal people, the indigenous people of California and the nation, have long desired to have lands that they were culturally connected to, and they've desired this land to be returned to them for the type of stewardship that was provided by the tribal people in the past. The tribal people had learned through the millennium of time how to best manage that land. There were large herds of deer and elk, and they knew how many deer and elk they should harvest each year. They knew how they should burn areas so that it would encourage seed plants to grow. It would discourage these large wildfires that you see now. They had developed other techniques that would encourage the filbert nuts to grow in the Santa Cruz Mountains. Now the forest so tall and shades out the nuts, so you don't get the production as you once did. So there's a lot of management of the land, the stewardship of the land, that these tribal people would like to bring back so that they would see it being more productive and closer to the way it was prior to the European invasion.
Well, I wonder too, Ed. I'm speaking with Ed Ketchum. He's the new tribal chairman for the Amah Mutsun tribal band here in the Monterey Bay area. You actually are almost a neighbor of ours because there's a home that is being used for meetings in Bonnie Doon that I understand was deeded over to the tribe as well. So is that where a lot of the plans get made for some of these things?
When we initially started work on the land, we're a non-recognized tribe, and to do business, we had to form a nonprofit to allow us to do business in the state and in the United States. So to enable us to do business, we created a nonprofit called the Amah Mutsun Land Trust. Initially, we found that there was a lot of need, and in the north coast of Santa Cruz County, and because we had been working with anthropologists from UC Berkeley to study the tribal people along that area, and so we had developed a relationship with the people in that area, and we were doing a lot of stewardship in that area. So to house the stewards, we purchased this piece of property at Bonnie Doon. But I do not know if we're going to continue to have that property at Bonnie Doon because most of our effort is being moved down to this large Juristac property. And we also purchased another property nearby called Oroma Hisik, and that means the bobcat wandering place. And we're looking at a number of other properties which were former village sites. One is Chitaktak, which means the place of the dance, and the other was a place closer to Gilroy known as Peacock. And so since our our land acquisition has been closer to our traditional tribal headquarters at San Juan Bautista. We're moving our operation closer to that area.
That
Although
makes sense.
We have also the Corralitos and Salsis Poetas land grants are in that area, and we have tribal ancestors were from that area as well.
Is Ana Maria Sayers someone who is part of the Amah Mutsun tribal band, or is she part of a different one?
Amory Sayers' mother was Elena Sanchez, and she was a friend of my grandmother. And I remember going to Indian Canyon when I was a child because my grandmother wanted us to know the all of the members of the Amah community. And so Amory Sayers and her daughter Canyon are Amah, but they've chose to not become members of the tribal band for they have reasons for doing that. Their I think it's Amory Sayers' great grandfather, Fabian Sebastian, was granted an Indian allotment in the late 1800s, and so they've been living on that piece of property and have a commitment to share that with all tribal people and people across the world to do ceremony.
We only have a couple more minutes left. Is there anything you want our listeners to know about your people that maybe they don't know?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank all of the individuals and organizations that were so helpful and supportive in our effort to stop this gravel pit. Without their support, we probably would have not been successful. And as far as about our people, they should know that we are the descendants of the people who were taken in Mission San Juan Bautista. We've never disappeared from the area. We have been quiet and silent, mostly because I can tell you examples where people expose themselves as being Indian and children were taken away, and there was persecution. So there's reasons why we've been silent in the past, but fortunately, the state government has put things in place that allows us to have a voice again. And if that voice is being removed in the future, we'd like to have all the people support the efforts by tribal communities to remain unified and do this work that's important, because the state can give it to us and the state can take it away from us.
We have learned that hard lesson so many times. Well, I really want to thank you for sharing your voice with us on Talk of the Bay, on K-Squid Radio, our community radio station for the Monterey Bay. Please keep us on your list of information dissemination, because we'd love to talk to you again.
Thank you, Rachel, for giving me this opportunity, and I hope everything's going to be fine, and we will be successful. Thank you.
I know you will. Thank you so much. That's Ed Ketchum with the Amah Mutsun Tribal Band.